Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jay Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are thrilled to have Jack Elliot, the founder and owner of Duffy and Boyd. Jack brings a fascinating mix of expertise in operations and project management, over 20 years of experience helping teams deliver on commitments, and a passion for building scalable operational foundations. Based in New York City, Duffy and Boyd is transforming how directors, COOs, and founders design workflows to reduce friction and enable effective collaboration. We'll be exploring his founding story, how his business empowers clients in the operational advisory space, and his vision for scaling this impact-driven venture. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Jack, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for having me. This is great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. A pleasure and incredible background. So truly an honor to have you on the show today, Jack. Really would love to start for our listeners at the beginning with you, if we can. What specific problem in the operational advisory landscape really inspired you to start Duffy and Boyd?
Yeah. So my founder story is one of I'm an operator at heart. So any project manager out there can tell you I came from that space. And in doing so, I was lucky enough to work in a creative operations production environment. So in doing that, I was basically a de facto member of teams across every industry that you could possibly imagine, across every part of an organization,
Mm.
up, down, and across the org chart. So I think in doing that, you really are intimately involved on knowing how people get their projects done. And then it can be bigger than that, in that most of the time, it really is a window into how they do everything. Because it's at that delivery moment, you have to look under the hood. You're a team member with them, whether you like it or not, as a project manager. And so that obviously ultimately led to, for me as a project manager, scoping out, well, if this is happening at a project level, it naturally went into operations for me, because then the sort of holistically, the whole thing has to work, even within the company that I was working with. So I think it grew from there. And then after doing this for so many years, I thought to myself, what I really think is I've developed these systems and tools and frameworks that I think were a huge part of my success in doing that. And just in working through some of these things with other clients and figuring out how to do that, I decided to, I don't know, take it on the road, as you will, rather than just getting another position as a director of ops or doing something. I think I have something to share holistically with clients, because I can be dropped in at any level of that operational friction. So I think for me, the problem that I've really seen, which sort of leads in, so the journey led to what was obvious to me, is when people find operational friction, how they try to fix it, usually one of two ways. They create a role. And it's not a job function. Operational health is not someone's role or job. And I've been that person, so I'm speaking to all the other operators out there, a lot of us have. They're like, we want you to come in and fix all the things, but also be responsible for managing and doing all the things at the same time. And that is a dangerous, slippery slope. So the problem that I'm trying to solve is to help founders, directors, people who are in the middle of designing workflows for the people that are having to deliver these, whatever it is, initiative project across an organization, basically building it with intention and design, rather than creating a job function that is supposed to be, in its totality, the person who's say, this is how operations work. It's not a department. Like flow is just that, workflow. And yeah, so how I've defined this problem is they do it one of three ways, which is hire a role. The other part is hire a consultant sometimes.
Mm.
But when you think about operational consulting, what do you think about? You think of financial metrics, effectiveness, and doing things and cutting expenses. And usually it has some financial outcome. And this is like this other third thing that where I am, where people say it's from strategy to execution. I'm this third thing, and I'm in the middle. I'm environment. Like, are the things that you're needing to do, how is like the garden soil? Is the ground fertile for you to even accomplish what you're trying to do from a strategic standpoint? Like, you can't execute through the field if it's just absolutely not built for you to do. So that as a founder is my biggest gift, and my biggest struggle is that I'm doing this weird sort of third thing that's not really, I say the quiet things out loud. Most people don't think about workflow as being one of the biggest symptoms and signals of operational dysfunction. So, yeah.
I absolutely love that. So I definitely want to get into the nuts and bolts there, especially for our listeners who maybe aren't so sure what it is that you are really doing here with the workflow design and the operational side. So walk us through the core offer here. I know that you do the operational diagnostics, the workflow design that you're doing.
Yep.
Who is the ICP that you are really working well with on these core offers? So two questions there for you.
Yep, absolutely. And so I would describe as an offering, the simple way to say it is like I look at it like three pillars. For a consultant, the first part would be as in an advisory capacity. Whether you're building or you're solving, there's an opportunity to come in and actually just diagnose what it is that it could potentially be, pulling back those layers. So that's just the advisory part, which again, that has an interesting point of delivery because if you don't know what's wrong, sometimes you don't really know if you need that type of intervention. So we'll get back to that part. But another way I think where companies can utilize what I do as an offering is as a fractional ops, because a lot of times the heavy lift, if they're hiring that person to design and build, oftentimes that's actually not even the same person because you'd have to have such experience and vertical depth to actually design workflow at an enterprise level versus someone who's just a functional operator. They're just two different things. There's a lot of people who can do both, but it's less common that you can assess, fix, and do all at the same time. That takes someone pretty high up. And a lot of times, if the role is structured where you don't have that kind of gravitas within an organization and you're just like a director of ops, you almost have to approach it in a consultative way to sit those leadership down and design intentionally. And that's not, you don't always get that access. So for me, it's advisory, a fractional ops. I can actually come in and step in to do some of the doing of it. And by virtue of that, the advisory part's built into that, but it's not the foot forward as far as someone's hiring an advisor. And the third part is training. And that could be something like new manager training is probably one of the most underutilized things I can think of, where being great at your job, congratulations, the reward is you get to be a manager. And that's not an intuitive skill. It's not a thing where just because you're great at what you do that you can actually manage. Because a lot of times we've all had those managers that are just not functional at the stepping away from the actual thing that they were doing before they were a manager. So those three things, it's either like the telling you from a diagnostic standpoint, helping you do it, and then or teaching you how to do it. So that's the core offering. And because it's operations and it's deeply diagnostic in nature, and you can make some healthcare analogies in that way, I don't always know. I don't have an off the shelf like this is what operations is, where it's tell me where it hurts. So in that sense, the offering is a little bit all over the road. So it helps to put the structure of those three pillars around it as to, in a way, functionally, how I can come in and help.
I love it. I love it. With that, is SMBs like the main focus for you here? Or is it a bit bigger,
Well,
enterprise? What are you really looking for on the
so
side?
me, absolutely. The SMB is usually, I will say it this way, at a department level, an enterprise company functions is exactly the same as an SMB from that standpoint. So I can, and I have worked with a company department within a company, let's just say for like a branding or a marketing department, because structurally, some of the things that they would be struggling with from like a multi-stakeholder environment, putting that workflow together, having to deliver across different parts of the organization and getting that from that strategy to execution part, it's more at the level of function that's on paper. Structurally, they could be suffering from the same exact thing as an SMB. Smaller companies, like one or two people or something like that, that's not something at least I've done at this point. So it's mostly those two. And the scale isn't as important as the functionality of what it is that they're suffering from.
Absolutely. So with that, I definitely want to get into a bit more of the acquisition side. So obviously that offer is incredible what you're bringing to the table and clearly have been in it at some time and providing the quality on that front. So walk us through what channels you're seeing, Jack, be most effective for bringing in clients consistently as you're now looking to scale and grow Duffy and Boyd. What's working best there, whether it's ads that you're running, social media, referrals? Walk us through that side of it.
So I have an interesting origin story in that I was like in some ways lucky. enough and cursed enough to have brought some high value clients with me from
Yeah.
freelancing transition from when I was working full time to then starting my business. And so I think my biggest challenge when I was starting this business is how do I take what this is? Because even just that I described that I know very well, most people don't intervene with these problems at a consultative level. They just
Right.
don't. They either create an initiative within the company, make it someone's role to do. They're not
Mhm.
like, hey, who could we get from the outside to solve our most intimate problems and things that only someone who would be in this company have the knowledge of. So that was the first thing is how can I actually be helicoptered into a situation like this? And that really does come from my origin story itself is I actually have done that my entire career. I was forced and I was basically helicoptered in on a very intimate level with my clients, building that trust, understanding what their friction points are and being able to see the outcome. I know what the signals are, and then we back up and I can help you with the root cause of it. So for me, again, the reason I bring that up in that way is that I'm now just in the journey of transitioning from those couple high value clients that have bridged the gap for me between this business is relatively new for me. And in the sense as it's a business, the core functioning of what I've been doing that for a very long time. So I truly believe that the way my story from a branding and marketing position and sales, obviously, because that's where we'd all be headed with that. But for me, it's more positioning. I think that's the most important thing during this transition. So I think branding and marketing are also wrapped up into that. So I think from TikTok, let me tell you, I think I
Yeah.
know, listen, I was there for the dancing. I was there for the dancing and the recipe making for a long time, but I do think that there's another side of TikTok. There are a lot of creators on there, a lot of founders, a lot of VCs, and they're talking to each other and they're building this coalition of helping each other and building community. I think that's one way for me to put myself in that space because I'm a perfect match for VC portfolio companies. They're all building operations, right? They're all at a strategic level. They are advising those clients to, or clients, their portfolio companies as they're in the build because I don't, and I have most of the time
Right.
been involved in helping people with friction. I also
Mm.
love to help people create things, which is like the most fun part to me, where they are founder operators and they're just starting out and they're building the blocks that then every single thing has to be built on top of that. So that's great for me. So to answer your question, I think the story is the most important for me. I'm not an email marketing type of business. No one is
Right.
going to be able to get that from me where, hi, I'm LinkedIn. I love it except for everyone's a guru, everyone's a subject matter expert, all of the things. It's very noisy. How do you break through that noise in an authentic way? I think it took me a long time to try to find what that is.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, the content part of it, the IP part of it is taking what I know and telling stories around how I believe people can take this really vulnerable thing, which is being a leader or a person in a company whose systems that they've built aren't going great.
Mm.
That's not a good position to be in. And so you have to approach that with, I don't know, some amount of grace. And my thing is, from a very positive standpoint, is to try to take the good DNA. That's it's like, what is working? Let's start there because accountability can be free of fault and blame. And so I think you build partnerships rather than it's a lot of listening rather than talking. So, in that sense, the opposite is also true for me. I think things like TikTok, building community, finding community that's already there and sharing what it is that I know and that I've done, creating value by just sharing those things rather than trying to get sales or try to market to people because this stuff is just it is what it is. I hate to say it, it's like these are the things that are tried and true. And if people are willing to, which I think they do, like I said, I've seen people have the groundswell of just people being really real about it. And I think people are ready for that. The channels that I see, the things that I'm most excited about are just people truly building other partnerships with, like in my case, solopreneurs in that sense, doing sometimes very difficult things. Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love that. So with that, Jack, are you doing this as a solopreneur right now as you continue to grow and build and scale?
I have in the past So the first year, absolutely, I was a lone wolf
Yeah.
because I didn't know. I didn't know how this would exactly show up. And like I said,
Right.
I had the benefit of not having to worry about necessarily. I was building myself rather than trying to grow. Growth was not my biggest focus, only because the models themselves were still being built, and I owed that to myself to be able to really understand how I could take this thing that I've built and actually put it into the world in a real way. So I was lucky enough also to meet some really great people who our business models definitely complement each other. So I work with strategic partners, and I think it's also a benefit to the client because it's really because the work is so diagnostic. I have a person who I work with who's an executive coach and a people ops person. So she's the equivalent of my deep vertical expertise, but in more of that HR space, in more of that, because as a layperson, but I have an ops lens with it. I can tell a founder, a leader, my lens, but to have someone who has certifications and qualifications to the degree that I don't, I can pull her in as needed. I have a tech person that's similar, a cybersecurity person also. So it's like my team of Avengers that I
Yeah. Love
can call on. And I don't know if that's forever. It could show up differently.
it. Yeah.
But for me, I think that's the easiest way for me to scale is to not have large overhead as far as
Exactly.
people
On
capital. Yeah.
on the people side. So from the sounds of it, obviously going through now, you're fully in the scale mode and growth mode. Sounds like a couple of bottlenecks on that are going to be more again the predictability on the lead generation side, really being able to
Absolutely.
take advantage of social media, get some ads in there, get the messaging right, get predictability in clients coming in, and then more on the sales side, maybe bringing on a setter and a closer to help you bring those in. And as you continue to scale, having more of that tight knit team there. Is there anything else that you're thinking about on the bottleneck side, Jack? Or are those really the main ones that you're looking to break through for that growth?
I think the bottleneck for me, right, I think it is people understanding the type of work that it is because and now I'm fine with it. But when I first started this business, it was like I would watch people's eyes glaze over. And first of all, strategic operations doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue. And if you're not in that world, people don't really know exactly what that means. It is a little bit nebulous in there. And then I would say something like, let's talk about all the meetings and all the emails and all the Slacks and all the channels that because that's really not where workflow is supposed to happen. And the reason that you feel the way that you do is what I'm talking about. And they're like, oh, that. So it's almost the thing that shall be named. And it's like, what do you do for a living? I help people fix the way that they work. It sounds preposterous. That's a job in a way, like I said, it's not really most of the time. But I think actually, and what I've maybe this is just the story I'm telling myself, but JM, I believe it. I truly believe
Yeah,
is that a lot of times I think there might be a clearer, more successful path as a consultant doing it. And I'll tell you why, is because it's no one's job.
right.
Usually, like we know, it's like from the very beginning, hierarchy, it goes up and down, vertical structure in the org, but work happens horizontally, as we all know. And there's nobody's job that really is responsible for that handoff. And people try to solve it with technology. We're like, let's just get another program, another piece of software. I'm like, yes, a tool, 100%. But similar to saying if you're just going to hire a person whose functional role is to fix it, you just have a bunch of job descriptions just bouncing up against and smashing into each other. And
Yes.
that's, like I said, it's taken me this long in order to make that much sense of it. But I think as far as scale goes, it's really truly for me getting better at describing to people what it exactly is. And you're right, there's probably someone who's far better at me than
Mhm.
closing that deal because it's just two different things. I that is not lost on me. And that is also the same thing where like the builder and the doer aren't the same. So that is it really truly is know thyself. I think self-awareness is the sharpest tool that any operator should have in their shed, and more specifically, what you're not good at. Because it's every day with me is like going to a TED talk, but that's not really going to close now, is it? People are like, thank you. I'm like, thank you for coming. So yes, I do think everyone wears their expertise hat. And I
Yeah,
think knowing that is how I will scale.
I love it. I love it. So I just have one more question. I mean, the time flew by on us here, Jack. I mean, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. So just to wrap us up here, I would love for to hear a piece of advice for our listeners what can you leave them with before we wrap it up today?
I think intention, and it sounds ridiculous and it sounds perhaps so fundamentally simple, but I truly think that it is. If you don't understand as a founder, leader, manager, director, a person who's designing something, if you do not understand fundamentally how the work is supposed to move through your organization from the point of inception through delivery at every point, you cannot outsource it. It has to be with you. So I'm speaking to all the people who are responsible for that at whatever level you're responsible that for. It has to be mapped out and it has to be intentional, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated or overprocessed. People think that it's more work for them. It's 10 times more work if you don't do it. So the best advice I could give is be very intentional about knowing exactly work is getting done, and that is the best place to start.
I love it. I love it. With that right there, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. And Jack, truly can't thank you enough for coming on the show, sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us. And I know that now on this journey to scale, you are going to see some incredible success. So would love to have you back on the show in the future so we can get a bit more of an update on that success. But again, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a phenomenal conversation. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And also check out Duffy and Boyd at duffyandboyd.com for more on their services, and follow Jack on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Jackson Henry Elliott. For more resources and insights, you can visit us here at closers.io, where we are dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.